My name is Drew Hart. I'm the strategic partner and service manager over at PostPilot. Assuming pretty much everyone who's joining knows who PostPilot is, but if not, we are the direct mail leader for D2C brands in the Shopify ecosystem. My co-host today will be Khaled, and Khaled, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll do a quick round robin.
Yep, my name is Khaled. I am the head of growth here at Revamp. Essentially, what we do is we help brands personalize at scale, timing, recommendations, as well as like in their email and SMS channel on a one-to-one level. So yeah, super excited to kick this off. I'll go ahead and go to Brad for an intro. Audio, Brad.
Great start. Hey everyone, Brad Johnston here. I lead partnerships at Opensend based in New York, as mentioned. For those who are not familiar with Opensend, identity resolution. We help brands, mainly in the Klaviyo Shopify space, identify anonymous site visitors or unknown site visitors so you can remarket to it mainly through email, but also various social forums. Great to be here.
Okay. Tina?
Hi, Tina from Simple Bundles, like I mentioned. I'm the head of marketing here, and if you're not familiar with us, we're a product bundling app on Shopify that focuses on making the back-end side of product bundles less complex and headache-free. So we break bundles down into their individual components to make picking, packing, fulfillment, shipping, returns, all of that much easier on the bundling side.
And lastly, Jeremy.
Hi, I'm Jeremy. I am the head of marketing at Talkable. Talkable is the original referral marketing solution. We were here in 2010, and since then, we've helped companies raise over $3 billion in revenue through their referral programs.
Wow. 2010. So it's quite a while.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you everyone for being on the panel today. Really excited to dive into a few questions. I think overall, the main goal here is to talk about post-BFCM, kind of what brands can be doing and just those in the ecosystem to be improving their own processes. Just so everybody knows who's watching this call today, it will be fairly informal. We'll have a question that will be on the screen. We'll kind of popcorn it, talk through some of the things that we've been doing or seeing being done in the ecosystem. And I think a really good place to start will be the first question. And that's kind of more broadly, who in our opinions won BFCM and any great offers or campaigns that the panel saw? Jeremy, Bancy, you're on my screen. I would love to hear your feedback here, if there were any that really stood out to you over the past few weeks.
I mean, I have to say that retailers won this year. I looked at it, didn't look like consumers won, to be quite honest with you. There was a lot of mediocre offers out there. We did see, however, through our lens with referral, our customers who treated BFCM like a true campaign, they saw a 3x3x growth in their referral activity over those days. The ones that just left it or treated it, like at an extra 15% off, they didn't really see a lot of activity in there. The consumers weren't biting.
Wow, yeah. Great point, Jeremy. Brad, curious if you had any thoughts there too. I thought that was an interesting point from Jeremy and what he saw.
Yeah, I think overall, just the expectation of increased traffic and engagement on the site. Everyone's just going haywire with trying to purchase everything, tell everyone about their purchases, so on and so forth. So just to throw out additional stats, Opensend saw, or at least our customer base saw, increase in 240% of identities passed through to our clients, and just it's basically a similar percentage as if it would be in a non-Black Friday, Cyber Monday scenario. So that jump is just basically a reflection of that increase in just general traffic. And they're at their highest point of purchasing. So I'd say maybe those who won may be biased a bit, but those who capitalized on tools like identity resolution providers such as ourselves, zero party, first party, just really anything to understand who that client is so you can properly engage with them while we still have a month of high purchase rates and then possibly a follow-up month of high return rates and therefore additional purchase rates. So know who your clients are so you can really just treat them right.
Awesome. Tina, did you have anything to say on this question?
Yeah, it's actually such a tough question because I really agree that I just don't even feel like there were amazing offers that I saw this year. Discounts weren't like super steep or like super steep, or anything that stood out to me hasn't been like super steep. I really think the best offers for BFCM weren't anything super creative, but it was the ones that was just actually creating like logical pairings that were helping solve specific problems and for specific use cases. Silk and Snow is probably the one that stood out to me. So they sell like home goods, and they're specifically known for like their bedroom furniture and mattresses and all of that. An offer that I really almost purchased was if you bought a mattress purchase, you got 30% off your bed frame plus 40% off your bedding. So to
Wow.
me, like that's just a logical pairing. It just makes sense to pair those things together under, one offer. So like a super simple solution to complete a whole set for a bedroom. So for me, it's like brands when they make offers just feel smart and not too desperate. And I think a lot of people focus a bit on like the desperation side of it during BFCM. I'm also a big sucker for free gift with purchase. I saw a lot more of that this year than previously. But again, like it needs to clearly be something that's useful and not thrown together just because. So Mugsy did like free beanie with purchase. The color was nice. The logo was in the middle, something that people who love Mugsy would be excited to wear. I see a lot of brands do like free tote bags, and to me, I'm like, that is not enticing. I do not need another tote bag sitting in my closet. So that's what I mean about like the offers that stood out to me were ones that was like, this is actually useful. You're solving a specific problem for me or a use case, and you're giving me something that I'm going to benefit from. It's not just, extra crap for the sake of adding it in.
That's so funny. I actually got from Yuri last year. I got a free beanie that I still wear to this day as a free gift with purchase. So completely agreed that beanie specifically is a great offer, but really free gifts in general is something that we've seen at PostPilot with our postcard marketing. You give a percentage off or a free gift, more so free gift. Typically, that card does stay on the table a little bit longer, and then therefore is more relevant to the buyer. So I think that's a really good feedback from you, Tina. Khalid, anything else to add on top of that?
I would say the one thing I really liked this year from Black Friday, Cyber Monday that I feel like has been lost in Black Friday is a lot more like cool in-store discounts and promos. I know Target did this really cool thing with like a bucket with like randomized discounts. Lowe's did randomized discounts, just incentivizing people to wait in line again and really take on what Black Friday really was growing up, which that's really what it was.
Yeah, great feedback. I remember, I mean, the Wii is the all-time one, right? When you're
Yeah.
growing up and there was a Wii available or low cost. I remember that being a huge one. But no, I think that's a great call out, especially some of the bigger retailers that maybe you don't see quite as often online, at least like on Instagram ads and things of that nature. One other call out for me was I thought the Woobles did a really good job this year of maybe not necessarily leaning into like a pure like offer, but campaign wise for me, I bought a lot of Woobles last year as gifts. I didn't hear from them a ton in the lead up to Black Friday, but then the weeks leading up, all of a sudden I'm getting offers on, hey, here's new products that we're releasing, new things, new reasons to come back to the site. So it was like a really easy way for me to be excited about the products. And for me, being a little bit of a sucker on the SpongeBob side of things, was really excited to see SpongeBob and Patrick now available. Tina, anything to add to that? I'm not sure if that's a brand you love as well, but
Yeah, you mentioned Woobles, and I just had to say, so they were actually one of our top performing brands at Simple Bundles this year during BFCM.
nice.
And it's because of their bundles. Like they're so strategically put together, and there's like the use cases. There's like the Harry Potter, bundle. Then there's like a Hello
Yep.
Kitty bundle. So it's just, yeah, like kind of exactly what I mean about smart pairings. And they were one of the highest performers this year.
Love to hear that. Sorry,
I
Kelly, go
want
ahead.
want to just highlight like one more that every year I wait for on the dot. There's this brand called Fugazi. It's a streetwear brand. And what they do is every hour, the percentage of the discount becomes higher. So it's like 10%, 20%, 30%. And then you slowly see things start to sell out. And every year I wait for that. And then also, I loved HexCloud's initiative when they talked about, we did really well for them over this Black Friday, Cyber Monday. They're our highest performing brand over BFCM. And what they did is they had one product that was like everything inside of all of their SKUs for like a single price. And it was like 40% off. And I just like saw the numbers light up, and I thought that was really cool as well. But yeah.
Amazing. No, amazing. That's a great point. In chat too, for anyone, and before I get to Brad, anyone else have any thoughts on this specific topic? Brad, I'll let you take it over, but please leave any comments you have in the chat.
Khalid, just to relay on that, I've actually seen some people do the opposite, post large Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales in order to, who knows, maybe get rid of inventory, start out with a massively high discount. Then the first X amount of people get that high one, then keep dropping it down levels as you kind of like deplete your products. So either way, it definitely makes sense, but super smart way to at least continue as everyone like continues the preceding of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or expanding it to earlier and earlier. I think we're just going to continue seeing a lot of brands that are doing that on the backside as well. And who knows, maybe that's just going to make it a week long, a month long thing with more spread out, even discounts. But it just seems to keep on getting bigger and bigger as we go on.
Yeah, so I'm curious on the panel. I'm gonna go ahead and go to Jeremy first. What's your answer to now what, right? All of this volume and traffic came in. Now what should these brands do? Now I'm gonna pass this off to Tina. What is your answer to now what? And what is the top tip for post BFCM that you have?
Yeah, I'm going to bridge off what Jeremy said a little bit because totally agree about wanting to extend that relationship window. And I think a big reason why is people are so tapped out of spending at this point. Like you had Black Friday, Cyber Monday, then you had them shopping for family and friends up until next week. And then there's going to be Boxing Day. Like people are just going to be stressed from all the money that they have spent over the last 2 months. So instead, like I encourage more trust building techniques, especially because when a lot of people buy during BFCM as, first time shoppers, and the deals are so good, they haven't actually taken the usual amount of time to learn about your brand as they would during like a non-sales period because they're just trying to bite and get the sale right away and get the purchase done. So you haven't actually had the same amount of time that you normally would to build a credible relationship with that buyer. So now's the perfect time to start focusing on that with these first-time buyers from BFCM, especially in January because they're going to be tired of sales and marketing at this point. They're shopped out. I would avoid things like FOMO messaging or too many salesy messaging and instead focus more on breaking down the value of the items that they bought, educating them on your brand, the value of your brand, entertain them, just more relationship building techniques by that point. The other thing I'll mention is one of my favorite tips to give to people is now is a really good time to reflect on your shopper behavior from BFCM and the holidays. We talk so much about BFCM profit spikes and we celebrate that, and that's so great. But we often forget that a lot of this profit is never going to be seen again. So I like to say, see what items people frequently purchase together during BFCM. 5 to 10% of the time is a really good indicator that those two items should be bundled together if it's something people are already naturally buying, and then you can promote that in the new year. Also see what items people purchased first and then came back and purchased second within 30 or 60-day window. And again, another good indicator that is just a natural thing that people might expect as a bundle. And then you've created 2 bundles based on how your shoppers are naturally pairing items together. And that's going to be more enticing than another discount or another big sale. And you can just promote that in the new year instead of something that's going to solve a problem for them.
No, that exactly. I think honestly, we get so in the weeds of just sending out sales email, sales email, sales email that we forget as consumers. I know, like myself, I've had to unsubscribe to like hundreds of brands over the past couple of years. Don't tell anybody, but like that's because I just was sick of being bombarded by these campaigns for brands to subscribe for when I was like 10 years old, right? That just like don't make sense anymore. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it off to Bradley. Similar question. What's your answer to now what? What is your top tip for post BFCM? You get all those new users coming in from Opensend. Now, how do you ensure that those become like very loyal customers?
Yeah, great question. And just relaying off what both Jeremy and Tina said, 1,000%, you got to make sure that those who purchased during the time are getting the right messaging and going to repurchase either before or after the holidays. So really all about segmentation. In addition to those that have purchased, there's a whole bucket that is still massively high intent. I know I'm not a massive Black Friday purchaser. I thought about it, didn't do it this year, and still now I have to pay more for the same presents that I should have bought instead of procrastinating. So there's still a group like me out there who you have to speak towards us like we did miss the big sale, but give us something in order to entice to get purchased before the end of the year. And then, as Khaled, you mentioned with Opensend, there's a whole bucket of folks that not only didn't purchase, but haven't directly subscribed to your content. And based on our ability to identify them once they're engaged, or other folks in the identity resolution space to identify them once they're engaged, you're able to properly send them email ads, direct channel, really messaging to get them further down the funnel. And in addition to segmentation, just the multi-channel approach, making sure that you're hitting them with the kind of unified messaging across multiple platforms. And really that's not accessible unless you know who your customers are. So like generally the theme that I'll always talk about is you're not able to personalize unless you're able to identify, and that goes for third party, first party, zero party data. So really just making sure you're optimizing the traffic that you've invested so much money over the last few months to get to your site, and then properly engaging with those folks in various ways, not just through email.
Exactly. And no, that makes a ton of sense. And I could not agree more. I'm curious, the chat has been pretty silent throughout this discussion. Does anyone in the chat have any questions thus far around some of the things that were said across the panel? Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna go. Not yet. Okay, cool. No worries. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it off to Drew. Similar question. What's your answer to now what? And what's your top tip for post BFCM?
Yeah, I think all three responses have been really strong so far. So the bar is high for me to wrap it up here. But I think one thing that I think about, just maybe like a little different idea of it, is that in a lot of cases, like customers and consumers will buy gifts from brands they like for others, which does like open up an opportunity for in January, if you didn't get the gift you wanted, now you'll buy it for yourself, most likely. So just something to keep in mind is that, like I think Tina mentioned, just kind of like tailoring kind of how you're speaking to your consumer, maybe changing that up a little bit in January around, hey, like here's some so great products we have available, maybe even a few that we have overstocked that we can give as a free gift or maybe offer a discount on, but just really positioning it as like a, hey, now's your time, as opposed to the past month, which was for others. Just like some interesting way I've seen our customers utilize like the post BFCM opportunity. And then just double click what Tina said about like just like kind of like creating real value for your consumers. I think an awesome opportunity through email, through SMS, through direct mail, especially. Just like thanking those for a great year, thanking for being VIP, great customers this year. I think it's just an awesome and easy layup to say, hey, like, we love you, please, we'll see you next year, basically. But we see a lot of customers do this with handwritten cards. I've seen it with emails even too, just like a note from the founder. Maybe looking a little bit different than the typical format. I think it goes a long way still. So those are kind of the 2 points that I was thinking about when hearing the others. I'll go through their talking points.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Why do we not say thank you more? Funny enough, we ran a you know, campaign with a brand that was a streetwear brand and wrote like a thank you note for the founder at Post BFCM. And someone actually ended up stopping him in the airport and was like, really like, oh wow, that was like so personal. That message meant so much to me. So I think that like, just saying thanks goes a long way for brand loyalty and retention, even beyond Revamp. Just general brands say thank you. But yeah.
So actually, I'll make this to you, Khaled, being you didn't really have a chance to dive in too deep in the last one. But what are your signs of success in post BFCM December and January campaigns? Curious in your thoughts on this topic.
Tough one thinking here, but I would say signs of success would be looking in post BFCM and seeing, just the key metrics. Like, are they still opening? Are they still clicking? Are they still converting? As well as like, what are, just the general sentiment of what they're thinking about around the emails and text messages and direct mail. Are they utilizing the product? Are they engaging with, this email messaging, this retention marketing? Are they signing up for loyalty programs? Are they really invested, or were they just a one-time purchaser of BFCM? That's the one thing you really do not want as a brand owner. Speaking as a brand owner myself, when I used to run a fitness brand, we would have crazy BFCM sales. We would have insane spikes. January would roll around. We would get some more, traffic there as well when we run our marketing campaigns because, new year, new me, right? But, we would start to see that drop off in February. So it's really just, massaging those clients and treating them like humans.
Wow, that's awesome. Cool to hear the numbers behind it as well. Brad, curious to hear on your side too. Anything that you've seen just in January, maybe specifically, or February, to Jeremy's point?
Yeah, maybe not even Opensend related, just previous life. I used to work at Klarna. So the try before you buy type of very much mentality of consumerism and over purchasing to then return. So I think just as you're looking into your return rates going into the end of the year and from Black Friday, Cyber Monday, just benchmarking against what the industry averages. I think I saw earlier it's like 15 to 19%, which they're expecting across the retail space in 2025. So just ensuring that you're prepared for that hit to possibly come and have a way to not only provide an ease of doing so, but your your terms of return or your policy around return is very much drastically understood by your consumers, and you're kind of prepped for that period. Other than that, I'd say just don't just pay attention to your purchasers. There's a whole other group of site visitors, of subscribers, non-subscribers that really are both in the current and long term super valuable to engage with. So yeah, just ensuring that you're keeping track of those folks as well, and so all that.
It's a great point, right? Window shoppers during this season are even maybe more important to capitalize on. I was going to say the same thing, Khaled. I thought John's point in the comments was really important around incentives and being strategic there. And Tina, it made me think of for bundling or maybe some ideas that you might have for this window of time.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that point because it's super interesting. And I love, John, what you're saying too about testing, doing a split test of your incentives to see which one converts better. We've talked a lot about repeat purchase rate after BFCM as a success metric, and I totally agree. I think in addition to that would be your RPV, so your revenue per transaction or revenue per session after as well from that second purchase. Ideally, if you're bringing someone back for an additional purchase, hopefully they're spending a little bit more with your brand each time. And this is something just to consider because of the steep discounts that you might have been running during BFCM. Your revenue per session might not actually have been as high as it typically would because you have to take into consideration the discount rate, the money that you spent on ads, any overhead costs, right, for shipping that product. So you want to make sure that that second purchase coming back is a healthier revenue per session rate than it may have been during BFCM. And that's where what John is saying about split testing some incentives there could really help you see, not just which one is converting more, but does one convert with healthier margins? Because that might be something you take into consideration. If the margins are healthier, but maybe it converts a little bit less, it could still end up being a better offer than the one that seems like it's converting more. That would be what I would look at in terms of success.
Yeah, that's awesome feedback, right? Real incremental value moving forward on that second purchase. Totally agreed there. Thanks again, John, too, for commenting in and helping drive that conversation. I think that's pretty much it on that topic. We can move on to the next one. Khaled, I'll let you take it from here.
Oh, this one's a doozy, actually. I'm excited about this one to hear what the panel has to say. Tina, I'm going to go ahead and go to you first. What kinds of offers perform best after BFCM?
Yeah, I'm going to have a bit of a biased answer here, totally transparent, but bundles. But just talking about, revenue per transaction and everything, bundles are such a good way to make sure that, when someone's purchasing again or even purchasing for the first time, they're putting a little in that purchase than they would a single product. Even if you are putting a discount on a bundle, typically the AOV is still higher than them just buying one single item alone. But to be a little bit more specific than just bundles, I like to say mix and match bundles. Reason being is it gives shoppers that are now a little bit more familiar with your brand an opportunity to play around and actually personalize the offer to them. it makes them feel a little bit more confident about the purchase that they're making. So you don't need to actually have like such a huge steep discount on these bundles, but you do need to promote the bundle offers versus just placing them on your website and hoping people find them. That's like one of my biggest pet peeves is, when people put these really amazing bundles together and you can personalize the selection of, colors, scents, whatever, and then they just don't actually think about the ways to promote it. So make sure you're putting those in your welcome flow, and use bestsellers or routines are really great with cosmetic brands to say, here's your nighttime routine bundle or here's your daytime routine bundle, and introduce those to all these new shoppers that have just discovered you, along with all the educational content we've been talking about as well, to explain the value behind that bundle. But to me, like, that's such a great way to bring people back in the door and to bump up your AOV at the same time.
Yeah, no, that was definitely, I think bundling makes a ton of sense. I wish more brands would do it, to be honest, coming from a non-biased perspective. Jeremy, you have your hand raised. Would love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Now, curious on Bradley's take here, if you're going to keep with the bundle train or if you have other thoughts.
Yeah, just for the sake of it as well, I'll also keep with the bundle train. I completely agree. It makes total sense. But in addition, really, all things loyalty, rewards programs aren't here necessarily, but it's super important to validate consumers for solid behavior. And if they love the brand, they're probably going to want to purchase from you again if you provide them some type of free product or points towards discount off, whatever that looks like. Again, it's all about segmentation. So depending on who that consumer is, making sure that they're getting a special treatment based on their whole history with your brand, ensuring that you're trying to, I guess, in the same way, get more from what you already have from a bundle and a loyalty standpoint. Again, optimizing what you've already acquired, what you've already paid for, rather than trying to spin tires on net new.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then, yeah, great points on loyalty as well. Like, loyalty programs are really big. Post BFCM. Now, Drew, also curious to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with the bundling. I mean, Jeremy brought the stats, so you can't argue there. But the one thing I would add that we saw really effective, at least on one-time buyer postcard automated campaigns, just triggering a card, say like 2 months after someone made a purchase, is including social proof on that card. So including like reviews, including maybe if you're in a publication that has like a lot of play, making sure that's on there as well. And I think it does kind of back what Tina mentioned as far as maybe buyers don't really get to know the brand during this window, so to have like a little bit more brand building on any type of marketing is a great idea as well. So that's the only thing I had to add. I think that the panel really covered it on this one.
Perfect. I also think that loyalty campaigns and those things that we talked about with like bundles paired with, dynamic reviews and browse, checkout, and cart are really big, because where are those economic buyers going to be driven to when they click into that campaign? Be driven back to site. When they're driven back to site, we need to make sure that browse abandonment also triggers those dynamic reviews. And that's where we really saw a lot of lift on our side for Revamp. But enough about me. Let's jump into the next question.
Awesome. So this one, again, we're going to try to avoid talking about our own products here, but what tools would you shout out as integral to post BFCM success, excuse me? Brad, I know you mentioned loyalty. I'm not sure if you had any others that came top of mind, but love to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, so not Opensend specifically, but really any data tool, first party, zero party, third party, one to shout out, Octane AI, ways to gather as much possible information on your consumers, because this is again like the peak time of intent. So if you can gather info on them, whether through zero party surveys or server side tracking tools like Fueled, and then serve them the proper messaging across the multi-channel approach as mentioned earlier, shout out to PostPilot on that front as well, then not only will you get really immediate return, but like you'll create long-term engagements with these folks as long as you're able to speak to them the correct way.
Yeah, that's awesome feedback. And yeah, great shout out on Octane AI. Super important. Khalid, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic as well.
Yes, I definitely have some tech partners that I want to shout out. I think just speaking about, tools and having integrated tools in your stack, one thing I will never understand as someone that has been in ecom for the past year and some change is why folks have like Klaviyo for email and then Attendant for SMS, or Klaviyo for email and like PostScript, and then like they have like a very complex stack through their life cycle journey that they have to look at two or three different ESPs. I will never cease to understand that. But a tool that I would love to shout out is we do a lot of work with Octane. They provide, quiz information, survey data, and we use that to then personalize the lifecycle experience. So we love them. We've done a lot of work with them. Another one that I would love to shout out is also Opensend, because they bring in those users, which definitely feed and help us in our life cycle later in the fact when we have to retain on cart checkout and browse. So just the tools that have really like enabled us to be a better solution. So those are the two that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe it's because I'm looking at Bradley, but yeah.
No, it's an awesome point, right? Like every tool obviously should work to its intended function, but also should be able to contribute across the entire marketing mix. So love to hear that. Tina, any last thoughts around anything else? Tools or even just strategies that you think would be good to note here?
Yeah, a couple I'll mention because I know you can't mention yourself, Drew, but definitely PostPilot. I mean, I have obviously we've done a couple co-marketing things together over the years, but I've also just seen how much the product has expanded over the years too. And there's so many cool direct mail things brands could be doing that is in a really good touch point that is so it's way less busy than things like email and SMS, right? And especially with email becoming a lot more difficult with all the privacy settings, now SMS getting a bunch of privacy settings on the Apple side, things are going to spam folders. You really, really want that touch point that feels super personalized. So I've always loved what PostPilot has done. We've been talking a lot about increasing profit per session, and I'll just give a shout out to Aftersell here. That's a really great suite of tools for checkout upsells, post-purchase upsells that really just make the most out of pretty much every conversion you drive to your site, squeezing a little bit extra dollar amount out of all of those in a brand safe way. So I think they're doing incredible work. And then a final partner of ours that I'll give a shout out to is Reactive. We've been working a lot with them recently in terms of, just getting brands together and having conversations with them and then building an integration with them so that you can put bundles in your mobile app now. Not every brand is ready to have a full mobile app. I understand that, but they are doing some really cool things on basically creating these mobile experiences that you don't have to actually download on your phone. And through like QR codes and everything, you can basically have a customer scan this QR code or click a link and get this very custom mobile experience. And then when they engage with that, you can send push notifications for up to 8 hours without them having to opt in, just because they engaged with this like Apple app clip. So it's a very interesting technology that I think we'll see a lot more brands start using in the new year.
That's awesome feedback. Yeah, appreciate the shout out, of course, too. But yeah, I've been thinking about recently, we released a new integration with TDR Labs today, and just like kind of the crossover between your phone with retail, with online shopping, and just how they all kind of come together. So I think that was something I thought of, while you were speaking there. But yeah, last thing I'll mention too is I think a big thing on my mind recently, and we've kind of touched on just the experience that every consumer is getting, is just loyalty plays, which double clicking on something we've kind of already talked about, but just making sure loyalty is a part of maybe the more performance-based marketing channels, making sure that customers are feeling the love and also understanding where they're at within their customer journey with the brand, I think is really important. But yeah, chat, Any other thoughts, questions? John, I almost want to call on you because you had such a great comment before. But any other thoughts on tools or even just general categories of tools that you'll think is really important moving forward here in 2026? All right, let's move on to the next topic here.
My favorite. My favorite topic. I'm an AI nerd if no one knows this, but yeah. I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to Jeremy first. What is coming down the pipe for 2026? Are we going to be in an AI slop Armageddon? We see it on LinkedIn every day. Will that also hit our retention channels as well? Bad. Uh, Tina, do you have any thoughts on this?
I have so many thoughts on this. As a marketer and someone who spent their career in SEO and content marketing, yeah, Jeremy, to your point on the lack of quality, there is so much lack of quality now, and there's so much credibility that is being destroyed from AI. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. I actually love AI, use it every single day, big AI fan. But I do think the lack of rules, I guess, and guidelines around it right now is a bit of an issue. And I'm saying this from the brand side because as I'm scrolling TikTok now, people don't know what's real and what's not anymore. And there's so many videos that the first comment that has the most engagement is, was this AI? People are questioning everything that they're seeing now, and they don't know if they can trust that what a brand is giving them is even real anymore. And that's going to be a problem if you've used AI in a way to break trust with, fake UGC, fake reviews. You're hurting yourself, you're not helping yourself. So AI is really great for entertainment style content. I've seen some brands do a great job of this where it's created for the sake of entertainment. It's not there to sell, it's not there to be fake or give false information. It's something funny to build a relationship. That works. But when you're using it to try and pull at people's heartstrings and then it ends up being something super fake, you just feel really let down as a consumer, and then it's really hard to build that trust back. That's kind of an issue I see happening in the new year. Shopify is also very much pushing this integration with ChatGPT where you can check out now directly in chat. So I do think we're going to see more of that happening in the new year. So if you have not been thinking about your AEO and how to get your brand surfacing in ChatGPT responses yet, I would start prioritizing that ASAP because we are seeing a huge push on that where people might not even go to your website anymore. They're just going to discover your brand in chat and check out directly in chat.
Yes, I cannot agree more on the AEO piece. I know, like, out of the recent YC batch, like, there's so many tools that have came out around AEO. And side note, also, like, TikTok Shop, right, for a lot of these brands, it's just going to become more and more prevalent in our space. Bradley, I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to you. I definitely want to answer this question myself at some point because I'm, like, such an AI nerd. I run an AI nonprofit. So, anyways, go ahead, Bradley.
No, I think that's perfect because you get the closing words on this. You're definitely more proficient in the AI space as myself. But the one thing I will say is similarly, you're not able to personalize experience unless you're able to identify who you're personalizing that experience for. Like AI and data have the similar relationship as like your AI is only as good as the data that you're putting into it. So just making sure your data is good and really the information that you're using in order to just push out certain messaging or content or engagements with consumer, make sure that data is right. Because if not, you're only just going to basically create situations when you're speaking to the wrong people in the wrong way. And it's going to be efficient AI based, but you're just going to be missing the mark if it's not correct inputs. Outside of that, Slotmageddon is 100% going to continue, whether or not you use good data. So I think just making sure you're able to hone in on how to like optimize that data in addition to solid data. I think, yeah, we're in the age of we're past the point of no return, and everything is going to be AI generated, myself included. I use it way too often to admit on this call, but yeah, that's just kind of the world that we're in. So if you fight it, you might just be in a losing battle. I'd say just make sure you know how to operate within the bounds from, like you mentioned, Tina, just safeguarding your brand from a consumer perspective if you're going to kind of delve into these tools in these ways.
Great response. The context is the most important thing around artificial intelligence for sure. Drew, curious around your thoughts here as well.
Yeah, the hopeful part of me is that AI will take a lot of maybe tedious parts of roles for teams where they can maybe get more personalized and like spend more time and like really creating unique experiences. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, unfortunately, but that's maybe the hopeful part of me. But I think another thing that I'm interested in seeing is I know that Shopify has been focusing on maybe creating some more A/B testabilities within their own platform. And I wonder if maybe there is some sort of, like with the ChatGPT angle here, if there might be ability to create some more personalized experiences on Shopify, within stores, within ads, things of that nature. But yeah, I think I'll just double click on what everyone said. I think the Slopageddon is here. It's been here for a while now, but hopefully it just makes people smarter as they get more comfortable with the tools that they're using. But I'll stop talking there, Khaled. I think that you're probably the best person to speak on this topic, so I'd love to kick it back to you.
Yeah, so side note for everyone in the room, I help run the largest AI nonprofit. It's called the AI Collective in the world. We have over 100,000 members. It's a side thing that I've been doing. And it's to democratize AI and have more people in the space of AI learning more about it, because this technology is going to affect every single one of us more than it already is today, including our job market and automation. So that's just a side point. I would love for anyone in the chat to also check that out as well. We have branches everywhere you can think of. We host live events. Now, my thought process on Slopageddon is only as good as the context that you provide it. So every single sales call I have at Revamp, because what we do is we help personalize at scale, messaging, timing, subject line, CTA header, is what if AI hallucinates? AI will not hallucinate if you provide it the right bounds, if you provide your brand guidelines, if you look at the last 3 years of history of your brand, if you scrape the website and you look at it prior to each individual message going out, it will not hallucinate on the email and SMS side. I think for content and content generation, AI is unfortunately something that is here to stay and something that we have to work towards and understand to a T. I think that human content will continue to stick out on LinkedIn as it has. I think Instagram content, it being humanized, will stick out more than it has. However, but for brands and brand experience, I think there's a world where AI can be your friend and really drive the in-store experience that we all have and see today from retailers. A person coming, asking you questions, really understanding, recommending you the right products, talking to you like a human being. That is what I envision the future of being for email and SMS and direct mail, right? I feel like email and SMS has been archaic for the past decade. I also think that to stop Slopageddon, we have to all really understand prompt engineering. AI is only as good as what you train it on. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up. They're like, oh, why is it hallucinating? Why is my output so bad? It's because the input was bad, right? It's like an equation, you know what I mean? And the better you get at it and understanding, and the better you learn about these models, only the better outcome will come out. I do think, though, side note, image generation is not there yet. That's just a complete side note. For what I've seen on image generation, it's not there yet. Videos, it's a little scary,
Gemini's getting pretty
Sort
good,
to
though. I'll tell you what. I mean, some of these
videos are
Geminis I'm
terrifying.
seeing. Yeah.
The videos got me, and I'm an AI nerd, so I am concerned about videos. Could start wars, you know what I mean? Done incorrectly, right? But anyways, that's my rants. That's thank you for listening to my TED talk. But yeah,
That was amazing. No, that was awesome, Khaled. Don't apologize
cool.
at all. That was great.
Yeah.
All right. Let's I think this is about it. So just in closing here, we can open it up. We have about 5 minutes left here. If there's any last minute questions, I saw some engagement on the AI topic in the chat. If there are any more questions that want to be asked of the panel, please do so now or forever hold your peace. But yeah, I would say too, maybe a good way to end this as well is just any last comments that the panel has for the next few months here. Khaled, maybe I'll kick it to you. Do you have any kind of like last talking points you want to make sure are communicated on today's webinar?
No, I think just to wrap up everything, really just think about your loyalty program. Think about, treating customers as human beings. And if you will utilize AI, do it properly and provide it with the right context, or it will hallucinate on you. But happy holidays, everyone.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you, everybody, for joining today. Thanks to our panel. It was an awesome discussion on a variety of topics, which we really appreciate. Hope you all have a great holiday, great end of the year, and good luck in Q1 of next year. Thanks, everyone.